Hello. Happy Monday. Happy March 4th day. And welcome to Merriment Mondays. I hope you're having a good day, and we are going to talk about motivation today. And before we get started, let's talk about your magical merriment moments. Here are some of mine. Oh, let's see. Recently, what have I gotten to experience? Well, I got to go to Dopamine Land in DC, and that was really cool. It was like this interactive art experiment experience. I go to a lot of those interactive places, like recently in the news, Willy Wonka. uh, I would have totally been duped by that, but I got to go to Dopamine Lane and actually really recommend that one. My friend April and I go to them really often, and we are, usually relatively unsatisfied by what happens. Like the Willy Wonka, it's not usually that bad, but this time Dopamine Land really, really outdid itself. Like that room was fantastic, this one that I'm showing you, and there were a lot of other rooms that were really, really great, and they really actually delivered on the sensory part of it. There was a lot of fun rooms that were actually interactive that you actually got to do stuff with. It was very, very cool. And let's see, what else am I showing? I'm showing high tea here. I got to have a play date with my friend Seti, and we went to this really cool place called Emma's Tea Spot here in Baltimore. And we did like a little high tea. It's like really cute. If you've never done it, they give you like this little tower full of snacks, and cucumber sandwiches are so cute and so delicious and really easy to make. And then I also went to Creative Mornings recently, and that's something that happens actually in a lot of different cities. There might be one near you, but here in Baltimore they do it, and it is wonderful. They pick a different topic every month, and this month it was on Native, and they had this woman come in, Ellen Frost, who is this local flower designer, and she makes sure that all of the flowers near her are done or like picked locally within 100 miles of here. And when I was there, that's the picture right there of me. I was handing out some goodie bags. I hand out my Merriment mystery bags wherever I go, and from that giant rainbow bag that you just saw. And this wonderful person that was a photographer, actually, they took a picture of me, and I thought that was a really cute picture. Okay, so, some good news. This just in. Let's see. What do we have here? My good news. What is my good news? Let's see. What do we have? Oh, I did not resize this. Oh, I know what this is. I know what this is. Let me resize it. Oh my goodness, it's so big. It's so big. Oh, goodness. Woo! Woo! Oh my gosh. Well, this is why the quality on iPhone pictures is so good, because they're giant photos. Wow. Okay. So, at the back of the Dopamine Land, there was this room, and it was all white, and they had all these markers, and you could write anything that you wanted, and everything was so positive. There were these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful messages and affirmations and pieces of advice, and it was so heartwarming and overwhelming. I just really, really loved it. And as soon as we walked in, my friend April just pointed up to the top, and she just put her finger there to let me know, like, look, these are like messages for you. Like, these are the kinds of things that you would write. And I was just like, I love it. Look, you are bold, brave, and beautiful. And then everywhere else in the room, it was just like that. You could write on the couches, you could write on everything that you wanted. It was so great. And I also wrote a piece, and I will share that on social media later. Oh, and then a good news story from the rest of the world. Was it this? That one's really small. That's so funny. Okay, well, we'll just leave it because I'm having trouble with this. Okay, but the Perseverance rover on Mars recorded a potato-shaped moon. Both of them are like potato shapes. Um, Phobos, I think that's how you say it. They were crossing in front of the sun a couple weeks ago, and this was technically a Martian eclipse, and people are going nuts over it because they look they look like googly eyes. It's so cute. I love it. Okay, if you are feeling kind, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the like button, like this, like the chat, like it all, and share this video with everyone in your life. And yeah, because the more people that feel good, the more people that can do good. And today, oh, you know what? I wanted to tell you, we are doing, I am doing a, why is everything off a little bit, right? Like it's like super weird now? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. It's like the marquee is weird now too. I don't know. I'll have to fix it later. It's fine. So we already did the How to Be Your Own Valentine Self-Love, Unconditional Self-Love masterclass, webinar, whatever you want to call it, last month, and that was really great. We got some wonderful reviews from that, and you can access that now still at uncustomary.org and get that for free. And we're doing another one at the end of March. So March 30th, you can do that, and you can sign up for the new one that is coming at the end of March, March 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern, and it is on anti-anxiety. Yeah, we're going from anxious to awesome, and I have like all of these tools to teach you about how to like heal your mitochondria. Like it's real stuff. I haven't made like a promo thing for this, but I just made the web landing page for it, and you can get that at uncustomary.org as well. But this that I'm pulling up, this is actually to let you know, oh, this is just stuff from the Feel Good Troop. I usually prepare this like a couple of days before, and I must have prepared this like a long time ago. So this is an example of the first masterclass that I taught in the Feel Good Troop, because the Feel Good Troop is a very new offering in the Uncustomary universe, and this is the Practical Self-Care masterclass inside of the Feel Good Troop membership. And the Feel Good Troop membership is an amazing way to get the meat of the Merriment making method that's usually taught through the Merriment Makers membership, but you get it for like 10% of the cost of the Merriment Makers membership price. So you get 29 masterclasses now for only $39. And I just keep adding content to it, and the price has not changed. So it's only $39. This is the most recent edition. It's called the Practical Self-Care Masterclass. There's a list of resources. There's journaling prompts. So basically it's a mental health masterclass about how to deal with practical self-care. So this is like foundational stuff. This is about how to take care of your professional life. This is how to deal with your finances and social media and your environment. I also included there's a new game plan in there about how to have a positive environment in your life. Like how to put, I'm having trouble talking today. Oh my goodness. How to have a positive physical environment, like a fabulous space. Okay. And how that affects your mental health and how to work with that. And how to be able to speak. Goodness gracious. Okay. Caffeine. We go through all 4 of these prongs of practical self-help. Environment, professional, financial, social media. I go through the things that you want to do to take care of that as self-care. Then I ask you questions that you want to ask yourself, which are then provided externally as journaling prompts. Then I provide you extraneous resources from other locations that allow you to go deeper, because I don't want you to ever feel like this is all, or this is the only perspective. I want you to be able to be like, okay, well, yeah, you said something about like financial self-care, but like, what am I going to actually do when it comes down to taxes? So here's a 101 guide about how to do your taxes. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what that means. That's a better way to say that. Okay. So if you want to get access to that. It's only available in the Feel Good Troop, and it's only $39 for that and 29 more masterclasses plus audio game plans about how to take care of your mental health. So you can get that at uncustomary.org as well. Okay. And this week's topic is motivation. So let's talk about motivation. A lack of motivation usually comes from burnout, a lack of autonomy, mental illness, low self-esteem, a doubt, self-doubt, having a really mean inner critic, struggling with perfectionism, procrastination, not knowing why, and not seeing results previously. So if you struggle with any of those things, burnout, lack of autonomy, mental illness, low self-esteem, a lot of self-doubt, a mean inner critic, perfectionism, procrastination, not knowing why, or not seeing results previously, put a comment in the chat. And here's what actually gets results. Consistent action, okay? Not spontaneous, infrequent acts, even if they're really large and grandiose, but consistent habits that tip the scales over time. It's not sexy, it's not cool, it's not flashy, and it's not what we want to hear. For a long time, I really hoped that if I did a few big things here or there, I would get noticed. But that's not the case. It's consistency. It's daily efforts, not just for the outside world to reflect what you're doing, whether it's like gaining muscle or gaining followers on social media, but for you to stay connected personally, intrinsically to your goal, and also inspired and associated with your goal. Results also come when you know your intended outcome. So for a long time, I had the goal of like just being a merriment maker, you know, without this specific end game. And to be fair, it's not really a finite game here. Like, this is still an infinite game for me of being a merriment maker without a finite goal. Like, there will be no checkbox when I say, I have been a merriment maker, like I've done it. But within this infinite game of being a merriment maker, I have created finite, checkable outcomes as like these mini video game levels that I want to achieve. And if you don't know what you're working towards, then you won't know where to focus your attention. And before you say that no matter how much you try, you are destined to fail, we sometimes think that other people are set up more for success than we are. And you know what? It's true that many people have biological and environmental and cultural and racial and other advantages. And you have heard many stories about people who have been the underdog, so to speak, right? Not had these advantages and have like risen above their circumstances. And in every one of those scenarios that are much more inspiring than the people that had those advantages, those people knew exactly what they wanted to accomplish and they took consistent daily action. It wasn't easy, and usually it wasn't sexy, but it was possible. And I and you can't change the circumstances you were given. And it is deeply important to acknowledge them, not just to gain resources about how to manage them, work with them, and thrive with them, and move past them if possible, but to help future people in your situation to not have to deal with them, but to also use the circumstances as a reason to not try as an excuse, you know, like that's going to keep you from not feeling motivated. And you're never going to turn anything into a reality. And if you do identify what your goal is, your intended outcome, and you start taking daily action, then you can create something in the future so that people who have the same circumstances as you don't have to struggle with them in the future. But that's never going to happen if you don't do both of those things. Intended outcome, daily action. So, lots of us are discouraged by the things that I mentioned earlier, right? The burnout, lack of autonomy, mental illness, low self esteem, lots of self doubt, mean inner critic, perfectionism, procrastination, not knowing why we're going after this thing. And we've tried before, we feel, but we haven't seen results. So, those, I'm sorry to say, are examples of our circumstances that are not making us feel motivated. All of them. And almost all of these are a result of not feeling control in our lives. As a result, you will develop some sort of symptom from not feeling like you're in control. And maybe that is that you are becoming hyper independent, overly perfect. Maybe you'll go until you can't anymore. And maybe that will lead into some dysfunctional, repetitive behaviors or anxiety or depression in tandem with what's going on. In tandem with being hyper independent, in tandem with being overly perfect, in tandem until you can't go anymore. And then on the other side of that spectrum, we see people beating themselves up internally or having low or no self-esteem or our inner critic running amok, right? We feel like there's no hope. And sometimes all of these things are happening at once, or they're just like leading and bleeding into each other. But if you were to like actually see results on something that you wanted, that you desired, and that you were passionate about, right? You would actually develop confidence and higher self-esteem. You wouldn't be as burned out because you would be more effective. You wouldn't feel the need to be as perfect because you saw that it was working. You wouldn't procrastinate because you couldn't wait to see the next result. And you'd feel a higher sense of autonomy and in control of your life, which would alleviate a lot of the symptoms of depression and anxiety. So how do we get to see these results? Well, if you know that you need to have an intended outcome, then, and that you need to have consistent actions and behavior, then we need to know what needs to happen before you get to the state of doing these consistent actions. That's the key, right? So the first thing you need to do is make a decision. And this is where we get into like Tony Robbins inspired stuff, because frankly, a lot of the stuff that Tony Robbins has said has never been said better since then. And I attribute a lot of this to him. On decision making. So a decision isn't like a list or a thought or an idea, even though we think that it is. It's not a conversation about what might be nice. It's not a complaint about what you don't want anymore. A decision is saying, I am this now. I am X now. I am sober now. I am not a smoker now. I am someone who does this. I am someone who works out 5 days a week. I am someone who makes $200 a day. I am someone who has a clean house and keeps a clean house. I am someone who has a happy marriage. I am someone who writes a chapter of a book every month. You declare it and you cut off all other options. I think Tony Robbins even said that like the word of a Tony Robbins said the word decision. I learned from Tony Robbins that a decision means to cut off. It's a non-negotiable. If you're sober and someone offers you a drink, you know to say no. It's not that you're sober curious, you know what to do. There's a boundary. And if you're somebody who works out 5 days a week, you know exactly how many times you need to exercise. So if somebody invites you to do something that conflicts with that, you know that you're like, I can't, sorry. But most of our decisions are flaccid. They're wiggly wobbly. You need a goal that is something that you're obsessed with. So you have to figure out what you're going to focus on and what it means to you and what you're going to do now about it. And then you go back and you fill in the logistics. So if you want to become somebody who works out 5 days a week, then you go back and you're like, okay, like, That means that I have to go to the gym. That means I have to get a gym membership. That means that I need to get leggings. That means that I need to like drive to the Y and get a membership, like, and need to sit down and get a tour and then figure out what the schedule is. Like, those are the logistics. That's the nitty gritty. And then, yeah. And you can listen to the game plan on errands. Maybe that'll help you out in the feel good troop. But most of it is a decision. Most of it. It's this like wiggle wibbly wobbly situation where we're like, I don't know. I haven't really. That would be nice. It sure would be nice. But once you've decided on something, you're like, this is happening, and I will do what it takes to make it happen. And that's how everything else in your life that is happening has happened and is happening right now. You made a decision. You decided that that's how it was going to get done. Whether it was paying rent on the first, getting married, staying married, whatever it is, like, you decided that that was what your life was going to be, and you made a decision, and you have decided to keep aligned and congruent with that decision, even if you're not aware of it anymore, because it became second nature to you. And that's something that becomes great. If your second nature and your subconscious actually like allows you to fill in the details, then that's wonderful. But it's this inertia of transition that can get really annoying and discomforting. But carrying out the actions weirdly ends up being less hard than making the decision. But it's not just the overall decision, okay? It's not just the, I'm no longer somebody who doesn't work out 5 days a week. It's that decision every day to go. That's what I think is missing from a lot of things, is like, yeah, I'll decide to be someone who works out 5 days a week, but then you have to redecide every day until it becomes second nature. So the inertia and the transition phase could be very long. And most people quit their goals on the second day. So deciding every day over and over and over again takes a lot of energy. But once you decide, the actions follow it. So if you decide, the first decision is the hardest. It's the big decision of, I am going to be somebody who does this. And then it's the second day and you're like, okay, I am still someone who does this. And that means that I am going to do this. But if you give yourself any wiggle room of like, well, then you won't. So you have to insist on showing up for your actions, showing up for your decision. You can wiggle around with your modality. Like, showing up for the gym can mean different things. You can show up and go swimming versus doing Zumba. That's okay. But it's just the fact that you're there, right? If you're quitting smoking, doesn't matter what you do to not smoke. It's just the fact that you didn't smoke today, right? Like, when I quit doing drugs, it was like, it had nothing to do with what I did to not do drugs. It was just the fact that I was sober that day that was incredible. And sometimes I needed to focus on that all day. It was just distracting myself all day from being sober. That was the whole thing. And sometimes your decision will take up all of your brain power for that day. And that's very real. It's very real. There's also the pain-pleasure principle that really goes into effect here with motivation. Like, I'm what Tony Robbins calls leverage, which I think you can change the wording for if you want. But the pain-pleasure principle is basically like linking pain to something that you, how do I phrase this? Like, motivation is like, let's say that you want to start doing something. If you have to connect the idea of not doing that thing to something bad. Like, if you want to start if your goal is to, you know what, it doesn't even need to be something like writing a book or going to the gym or whatever. It can literally just be like finishing a work paper or something, right? Like a work project. And you're like, okay, my goal ideally would be to finish this early so I'm not procrastinating. That would be the goal. But you're wishy washy on it because it doesn't always happen. Usually doesn't happen. You do it at the very end, right before the deadline. So you have to reframe it and say, I am somebody who finishes this paper a week before this Thursday. And it's not enough to do that. You might need to link pain to the idea of what happens if you don't. So you have to think about what happens in your past, like when you have procrastinated before, right? Like all the annoying stuff that happens, like the pressure, the anxiety, the stress, the errors, the feelings of like incompetence or whatever you feel when you're struggling to rush. And think about all of that and the pain of those feelings and the pain of anything that would happen if you were to wait. Or yeah. So and then link pleasure to the feelings of being free early and what would happen if you did an excellent job because you weren't rushing, right? So then if you can do that, thinking about that, like you think about, I am somebody who finishes this paper early on this Thursday. You think about all of the pain things that you don't want. You think about all the pain or the pleasure that you do want. And at the same time, do something really like strange and loud. Like stand up and go, yay! I know it's silly, but if you, or it can be something less aggressive, like you can like pound on your chest or something and be like, ha! I don't know, but do something physical that's not something that you would do normally, okay? And then you can kind of like, you start to create like a code that is connecting and those thoughts together. So then you have like this shortcut to be like, means I don't fuck around with procrastinating on deadlines in relationship to this particular paper, but also in general. And it only works if you do it, right? It only works if you do it. But the next time that you're like, if you start to slide and you're thinking about like, I don't want to do it, I'll just wait until next Thursday, just do this and see what happens. See if you get those flood of feelings again and if it works. And it might, honestly, it might take a couple times for you to start acting on your stuff, but it doesn't need to. It never needs to. Decisions and actions take now. It takes right now. You don't even have to wait for the end of this video. Just go do it. And then leverage is this thing of like, it's basically the pain pleasure principle. Honestly, it's just having enough of it that you're motivated to start. Like enough of the pain pleasure principle that you're like, this is worth, like the pain pleasure principle is basically the concept of it. And then if you don't have enough leverage, then you haven't considered enough of the options of the pain and pleasure to implement it now, is like the best way I can describe it, I think. So if you need more leverage, then you need to associate the pain of not starting or stopping the thing that you want to do and associate more pleasure with accomplishing it. So you could ask things about like, what amazing things would happen to you if you were to do it, and how you would feel and how your friends would feel and how your life would change. Like just start thinking about it. Okay? Okay. So that's a really good place to start. And your homework is to think about oh, let me put the homework screen up. Your homework is to think about, what decision are you going to make? Who are you now? And, who are you now means like, are you a non smoker? Are you someone who goes to the gym 5 days a week? What is it that you want to do? Who is it that you want to be? And how can you turn that into like an identity? And then how can you get more leverage with this using the pain pleasure principle? How can you start associating more pain with the idea of not accomplishing what you want, and more pleasure with these micro wins? And you really got to celebrate everything that happens that's good along the way. Like, the reward aspect of this, it doesn't have to be like an actual treat, but you have to, every single time that you do something, like every time that you sit down for a micro movement of, like, let's say starting the paper or putting on your shoes to go to the gym, or getting your gym membership, or typing out a word on the document, like whatever it is, just like start yelling out, yeah, yes, yes, or I am doing good. Yes, this is good. Yes, like you need to create something that is a positive affirmation, a reaffirmation for you, that is reaffirming in your brain not only just the lack of negative talk, but a positive self-talk. And it's creating a reward system in your brain that you are earning this, you are doing well, you are on the right track. And even though it's coming from you, it's actually the best thing that it's coming from you. Okay? And going along with that, your extra homework from the Merriment Makers deck of missions is to cheer out loud. And you can get that deck, if you would like, of 111 Merriment missions at uncustomary.org. And please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video if you liked it. And you can sign up for the free seminar on going from anxious to awesome at uncustomary.org. And you can also check out the Feel Good Troop for 29 masterclasses for only $39 at uncustomary.org as well. I will see you over there, and I'll see you next time. And we're actually going to talk about anxiety next time. So I'll see you there. I hope you like this. Let me know how it went in the comments.